This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, we can see it. It's quite small. That might be me.
Oh.
Hang on. I think we're all right. I think it's just me.
Should be on slideshow. Sorry, I've got too many screens going on here. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I can see we've got a healthy number of delegates on the call again. So thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate, as ever, that time is very precious to you all. But we thought it was helpful as an output from the last time we all got together to carry this on. And we're very committed to carry this on for as long as you need us to. I think it's a really helpful opportunity just to align and pull together exactly where everybody is up to, what publications have been made, etc., guidance and so on, because obviously this is changing very rapidly at the moment. So I've put up on screen here a rough timetable of what we will follow today to give us some structure. As usual, it's fairly fluid. We will try and march through the top topics, have a little comfort break, and then open up dialogue and chat box. So while we make the presentation part this morning and we invite guests and board directors just to talk through some of the streams of work, if you want to just use the chat box as you did last week to add in any comments or questions, and then we will come to those after the break. Okay, so thank you. So the first thing that I wanted just to share with you, and I'm sure you've all found this already, is that we have, as we said we would, create a place in the current website called Heads of Services. And what we did was to take all of the topics that came out of the chat box, all of the different streams of work that you were asking and discussing last time, pop all those up onto the stream, and you see that there's a whole list of topics here. Most of which have now been populated with some resource. Please feel free to share with Victoria any resources or tools that you're using locally, because the more we can build into this, the better it is for everybody that we can share best practice and resources and so on and let everybody benefit. And then there are still some categories that we still want to populate. Now, I also wanted to just draw your attention to one of the topics that's in this stream, which was about CPD. And if you click on CPD, you'll get the panel that shows on the right-hand side here. And within the introductory dialogue there, you will actually notice the top opening sentence there that talks about the conference presentations. And if you click through into there, it will take you into the talking slides part of the website. If you haven't registered previously or used it, please do so. It's very easy just to register, or otherwise just log in. And what you will find there then is a link just at the bottom here in that panel that will take you through to the whole of the conference schedule. So this is a members benefit only, so you'll only be able to log into this bit if you are a member. But this gives you the opportunity to really share with yourself and your teams any of the CPD, the recorded lectures and so forth. So it's a great resource for you at this time if you're trying to help your team members to build up their CPD and to do additional training, particularly if you missed a conference. So we made a commitment some time ago that we were not going to update the current website, because as you know, in the background, we're building the new website. But of course, because of circumstances, poor old Victoria has been having to try and update the current website and still build the new one in the background and share those resources.
Can I stop you for just a second? We're struggling to see all the detail on the slides because you're in presenter mode. So we're getting the next slide view as well.
Oh, okay.
So it just makes the actual slide quite small.
Oh, how do I change that then?
I think it's in view on your PowerPoint. So you might have to end your slideshow. If you do view.
Right, that way. Is that better?
No, still the same. slideshow and setup possible. Oh, can you see there's a box that says use presenter view on the right in that bar?
I'll take that
If you
out. Yeah.
untick that,
There we
you
go.
should be all
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
There we go.
better.
How's that?
Thank you.
Better?
Yeah.
Thank you, Sue. I'll flip back to that slide then, just in case that just helps you. So again, from the website, linking down to CPD, across to there, you'll see a link through for accessing the talking slides and all of the conference presentations. So as I was saying, we have duplicated effort for Victoria because we're asking her to keep the current website up to date, because obviously that's really important for you, but in the background still building the new website that is to come, and obviously making sure that any resources that we do put onto the current one also get taken across to the new one. So I'm sure Victoria will be delighted when we move across to the new website. So you can see that I have put a rather exciting shape around the 20th of April. What will be happening on the 20th of April is that Horizons will land for you, and you'll notice a new look, an exciting feel to the Horizons as well. But within the Horizons that will land on the 20th, you will also find that there is a link to the new website. So big drum roll, and I know Vic's holding her breath there. What I would ask you all is please be patient with us, because obviously, as you can imagine, the website is predominantly built up of resources that all of the board and members need to feed through. Vic busily tries to coordinate that, work with the web developers on the functionality and the links and so on. But given the pressured time that we've been in, we've not been able to necessarily robustly test it as we might have wanted to. So you will be very welcome to go onto the new website once it's released. Please feel free to contribute any resource that you wish. If you find something doesn't work, then just let us know, because obviously we will be trying to test and get it set up at exactly the same time as all of you. But we are very excited, and a massive thank you to Vic for the really hard work that she's done to get us this far, and to all of the board for the support. So I've also been asked just to mention about stock. So the NHS suppliers, Kath was contacted by Tom Outram, who's a buyer for NHS, who had said that he'd got wind of services rationing things like batteries and so on. And he wanted to just share that there is absolutely no issue with stock levels. So you can give your patients whatever it is that they need. There isn't the necessity to ration, because they built up additional stocks just prior to Brexit, as I'm sure most of you know. So he's very comfortable that he's able to supply order. One of the questions that I just want to leave out there for you is something that came out of when we met at the end of March, which was around member benefits and what support services, particularly at this very stressful time for people, and potentially, you know, people may feel insecure about employment and their partners and so on, and what's happening with work and money and so forth. So what Kath will share with us at the end of this morning is some tools that NHS have made available to support. But as a board, we would be interested to know whether you think that we need to go any further with that, and maybe as a member benefit provide something that's in addition to the NHS, or do you feel that locally within your own trust you get the right support and the right links? So we obviously don't want to spend members' money or our time looking for something if actually it isn't needed. But if you recognise and think that there is a need there for some kind of support, most of these that I've got up on the screen here are employee support networks that different organisations might enlist. So obviously what we would need to do would be to explore whether there's a similar type of system that could work for members of a professional organisation. But we've had mixed feedback about whether this is needed, because, as I say, locally, a lot of your trusts do provide that support. So we would just appreciate some feedback on that. Okay, so we're going to move away from just those little updates now and into just updates on all of the activity that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. And there has been a lot of activity going on. So hopefully Jason is in the audience with us. So Vic or Sue, if we could just give Jason the microphone. He's just going to update us on the work that the newborn hearing screening working group have been up to. Thank you, Jason.
Morning all. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
All good.
Yep, fabulous. Okay, so firstly, big thanks to the BAA on the help with this work, because you've been great in trying to facilitate what's been going on. So you'll have seen, hopefully everyone's seen the new technical guidance that has come out. It is now on the BAA website. It's still undergoing PHE branding. Quite why it's taking them so long is unknown. But when we contacted them yesterday, they basically said then they're going to publish all the screening programs together, the technical guidance for all the screening programs together during COVID-19, and there's quite an issue with the diabetic retinopathy screening, which is why our document hasn't come out with their branding on yet. But the content of it is going to be exactly what is in the technical guidance. So the technical guidance basically says, as you're probably all aware, that you should continue screening on the maternity ward, and it then allows you basically free rein after that as to where your service for the diagnostic sits. What I would say is try and do as much as you can. So if your service isn't experiencing many problems, try and run it business as usual. If your service is completely shut down, that's also fine, and the document tells you how to set them and everything like that, and gives you some guidance on the referrals and the letters that need to be sent and everything like that. Subsequent to that, the group that wrote the document are meeting with PHE weekly, weekly to about every 10 days sort of thing. What we're currently accepting is any clinical queries at all around the guidance. So you'll have seen that we've now published a document, and that's also on the BAA website, and that talks about who's in the group and what we've discussed at each individual event. So we've received a query about CCMV and asymptomatic CMV. We discussed it. We didn't feel there's any need to change the guidance at the current time. There's also some clarity about some people wanted to perform OEE2, so they did actually want to wait between OEE1 and the AABR. We've said that's fine, use that gap. And the unaffected ear in cases of unilateral microtia, we're going to say screen it. So we're going to say screen the unaffected ear in microtia cases, especially if you're not doing diagnostics later on. It'll give you an idea of what the unaffected ear is like. They've come around to our way of thinking about ATOs being able to screen. They won't be able to screen on their own, so they'll always have to have a screener with them, but at least they will be able to do some newborn hearing screening. And going forward, they've also now published the letters for the different services. So you'll find on the BAA website that there is the audiology template for if your service is not currently seeing diagnostic appointments for ABR. That is completely voluntary. So that one you can change as you see fit. It's just basically a guide. The ones that have been put on S4H, which are the COVID-19 unilateral and the COVID-19 bilateral ones, if you're not currently seeing diagnostics, they are mandated by PHE. You shouldn't be changing any of the content of those documents. They're not allowing changes to those documents. It's just the one from audiology out that they're allowing anyone to change or use. The group are completely happy to take questions on what's in the guidance. We're happy that if anyone's got any queries or anything like that that needs feeding up to the group, to either get in touch with PHE themselves or the BAA, and we'll feed it into the group. The next stage that we're now going to start looking at is what do we do with for the sites that aren't now seeing the diagnostics. What do we do when we start to turn that service back on? Do we look at different ways of working? Do we necessarily need to see all the babies, etc.? And we're also going to come out with some guidance on the ones that have missed the screen. And again, that will be around, do we need to see them all, etc. But yeah, happy to take questions on it. It's there for anyone to see and use, really.
Thank you very much, Jason. So again, if you can put any questions into the chat box, and we'll come back to those at the end. So I'm going to ask Sue now to just talk us through some of the activity that's happened with the update on the documents on the screen and the open letter. So Sue, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. So last week, the guidance was changed in the community priority document. So that came out, it's really hard to remember, isn't it? I think it was last Monday when that arrived. And it changed audiology in the community from a complete stop to a partial stop, both for adults and for paediatrics. That obviously was pretty much where most trusts were anyway, that they were actually doing as much as they could for the patients without physically seeing them, and were running services that way. So it was kind of okay, but at the same time, what we also became aware of almost on the same day was an approach, a corporate approach, which is different to the local arrangements that have been in place with some private dispensers. So I know that some private dispensers, some local stores have offered help to services, and this has been on a case-by-case basis, and it's been very well accepted by individual departments when they've needed it, and that's been great, and that cooperation isn't the issue. But what we felt was important was to point out that commissioners had been contacted in a much more defined way, and that was the open letter. So the open letter was there just to make you aware that your commissioners were being contacted. They weren't being told anything that wasn't true, and that's really important to say that. But they were contacted to say, look, we've got this help and we could offer this help by one particular company, and actually different companies around the country as well. So some, and when we talk about the country, Scotland had different companies approaching to England, for example. So we just felt it was really important for you as our heads of service group to be able to also contact your commissioners and just say what services you were providing. So just explain to them that you were open, that you were doing things in a remote way, and that you were still able to provide services. And that's where the open letter came from, very much to mobilise you as a group to contact your commissioners and say, actually, this is what we're doing. We've heard on various messaging boards, but also in private emails that you've sent to Victoria about what happened when you did that, and about the contacts that your CCGs have had with you. So those are all pretty positive. It's really good to hear. One thing I would say is just to keep an eye on that, perhaps even sending your CCG a monthly report of saying, you know, we're still here, we're still doing this, this is a service. If you have to change your service in any way, then just let your commissioners know, just so they know you're there, just so that they know that you're still providing service to your customers. So yeah, that went out quite quickly, and it went out with just a sort of small group of board, and then signed by each individual board member as an agreed document. I think that's it, Karen.
Thank you very much, Sue. And yeah, so as we say, really the important thing for us is that, and clearly as you see on this call here, there's lots of activity going on. So it's just about making sure that people are as informed as possible. So one of the other big pieces of activity that's been going on fervently in the background is trying to liaise with the other professional bodies on coming up with some joint guidance that replaces each of the individual guidances. So Claire, if I could just ask you to talk through where we are up to with this guidance, please.
So on our website and on our social media, this has been released today, and for all the people involved, they've released it. It took some wrangling because obviously we're all coming at it from slightly different perspectives with different motives behind it potentially. But we're trying to make sure that we stop a bit of the bickering possibly and get us all on the same page in what we're saying is appropriate care at the moment. So I don't think this changes much from our previous guidance that we put out just as BAA. There's lots more links now to the government advice around PPE, but I would be really stressed that you need to go to your own trust or own employer about what's acceptable, having a chat with mine this week. Anything that might initiate the cough reflex, so basically going in anyone's ear, they're very much not keen on us doing, even with PPE, because you also have to consider the cleaning of the room afterwards and how long that takes. So we have suggested in this, the key points are that no wax removal occurs at the moment. Most things should be done remotely wherever possible, but there is plenty that can be done. So linking into remote working, which I think everyone from last week, 2 weeks ago even, is already doing and has set up, but also a bit more guidance on what you have to do if you actually do need to see someone, where to find the most up-to-date links about your PPE. And then we had a bit of a wrangling about whether we do impressions or not. So there is some guidance in there about what possibly you should do if you are going to do that. So it's worth a read. It's quite comprehensive. We think it covers everything now, but everyone has signed up to it. So everyone should now be working towards this guidance, hopefully.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. And as it says on the front there, it will be reviewed. Clearly, the links that are embedded in the document are linked through to all of the government sites. So as anything gets updated there, then clearly this is the place to go, because it will link into the most up-to-date information. And then as we understand what changes, we will commit to continually review this. And I guess I would ask that if members or services are looking to this guidance about a specific thing and then they can't find it, then let us know so that we can consider how we might incorporate that in a subsequent review. So thank you very much, Claire. And so I'm going to ask Michelle now. So this was a big topic the last time that we met, talking about how you are being redeployed and so on. So Michelle is going to share with us now a little bit of an update on the publication of this and what else is going on. So Michelle, thank you.
Hi everyone. So this document was released last week. I suggest that if you haven't seen it, you have a good read. It's pretty nebulous in some respects, but what it has done from the CSO point of view is they now have regional leads. So if your region didn't have a regional lead from the CSO office, they now do. And all those leads are getting together, the lead healthcare scientists from all the trusts in their region. And they're probably having weekly meetings, because our region is, looking at how they can start redeploying healthcare scientists. They're also looking at things, so they've contacted the HR leads as well. So it's just something that you need to be aware of, because if your trust hasn't got a very good redeployment strategy, or it doesn't really know kind of its key areas, then the CSO office and NHS England are looking to take staff to the Nightingale hospitals. So we've had discussions in the Northeast, I guess, around who can be redeployed to the Nightingale hospitals, what training do they need. They're looking at rapid training, for example, for staff. There's a 2-day course to be able to do medical physics type work and helping getting ventilators and that sort of thing up and running. So I think you need to link, particularly with your lead healthcare scientists in your trust, where you have one, link with the people who are planning it, because it's quite fast changing. And if you're caught off guard, I think you could have staff taken to places perhaps where they're not so keen, or it hasn't been planned out properly. There's money certainly in the Northeast being made available by the HEs for retraining and reskilling different staff. They're particularly needing, for example, medical physics people, cardiorespiratory people. So but obviously it depends on what size your trust is and what they're doing. We had a discussion about HEs and clinical staff that are lecturers now, and whether they're being reskilled back into clinical work. And I think there is a voluntary way they can volunteer for that as well. There's a quicker way for people to get re-registered again if they want to get back into work. But what I would suggest is that you actually do link with your lead healthcare scientist, and if they're not aware of these regional leads, then I'm quite happy for people to contact me. I do know most of them because there are quite a lot of meetings going on at the moment where it's being strategically planned, and people need to be aware that they are wanting staff as well as equipment. So and it will be region by region and hospital by hospital. There's also community trusts who obviously have closed down a little bit more and perhaps aren't COVID sites. They may be redeployed to the Nightingale hospitals and things. So I'm happy to discuss it further. I only really know what we've been discussing in our North East group, and it is confidential and sensitive, but I do know that the meetings are going on across the country in the UK, in England at least. So just connect with people.
Question in the chat box from Deborah. Has any other trust asked their audiologists to be trained as COVID swabbers? You heard of that one, Michelle?
No, but I do know of audiologists being redeployed to the critical care, to ICU. So, I mean, in my trust, they've been redeployed to pharmacy, a critical coordination cell, which is more like an administration role. So I think for me, I've been volunteering in areas that we don't mind helping in, because my staff really do not want to go on ICU. So.
Okay, well, we can come back to this towards the end, as I'm sure different people have got different examples. So thank you, Michelle. I do know that Jarjit has reached out, obviously, as one of the regional CSO reps, just to say that they are keen from the CSO office to obviously engage with the healthcare science workforces and to keep us updated and to think about how can we support and network information. And she was particularly keen to also promote the networks that John mentioned to us last time as well, as a platform for gaining information. So Michelle mentioned about registration as well there. So I'm going to hand over to Lizanne now, who's just going to give us a little bit of an update on where the regulators are and with our students and so forth. So Lizanne.
Your microphone's on, Lizanne. There we are, it's on now. Can't hear you though.
Can you hear me now, Sue?
We can hear you now, that's lovely.
That's fine. So hi everyone. So I am just going to I've got two things to update on, and just to carry on from where Michelle finished off with the redeployment document, I have posted the link to the latest version in the chat box, and as Michelle said, I would also recommend that people do read it. The regulators have all been working together. So the Royal Register of Clinical Technologists, the Academy and the RCCP have signed an agreement to work towards creating a temporary register. So I think I'll just start there. The temporary register follows very much on from what the HCPC and the NMC have been doing to get students into the workforce. So they will be writing to universities, because the criteria is still being confirmed, about seeing where students are and if there are any students that can join the workforce. For the nurses, the students have been joining at band 4 level. They can only do so if they've completed a certain amount or almost all of their placement, and then they still continue with the university work. So the temporary register that the RCCP, the Academy and the RCT is working on is to allow students so that we can then increase the workforce. Where they will be employed, I'm not sure, which I think might still fit in with this redeployment document. I'm not entirely sure if it will be based on trust or if it will be a general employment. So from the temporary register, so that's what the 3 bodies are working on. What we have seen with the document, so on page 9 of the document, it covers regulation and indemnity. Because we know that people will be asked to expand their scope or might be trained to do different roles, they are really advising that they do register, because there are certain things that the regulators can ask for, and that registrants can ask for, is to make sure that they have the appropriate training to be redeployed. And that's being part of a register, but also being protected by the register or being a registrant. Yes, audiology is a voluntary register to a great degree, and there are a number of people who are not registered. So what the document is advising is that all healthcare science staff not currently registered are expected to join an accredited voluntary register. So for audiology, that would be either the Academy or the RCCP. What I would say in terms of the difference between the two is that the criteria for registration does vary, because the Academy's register has an equivalence register, and then they have a register for PTP. So that's people who have trained on the healthcare science courses, where RCCP have a historical log of people who have been qualified through the BAA, the BAT routes, the BSc audiology routes. So there is different options. So what I would say is you can, if you are concerned about your staff, because I know RCCP have had questions about that from heads of service, I would say contact the registers and send details of your staff, because what we are looking at is also creating a temporary register to get people back onto the register, also for those who are returning to work. So I'm not sure if there are any audiologists who are wishing to return to work, but we have seen it in other clinical physiology professions. So the second point to talk to is the graduate support. So in my talk 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that one of the registers are looking at a provisional register. We've since had discussions within the RCCP and also with the Academy, and a decision has been made to accept graduates to the full register, but to provide them some support in the first year of working, and that will be in the format of a CPD portfolio. It's not meant to penalise any students or any graduates in terms of getting employment. It's more just a view to support them, because their placements have been some of their placements have been cancelled, so their whole experience in their last year of study has been affected. So from a university perspective, as well as a regulator perspective and an employer perspective, we need to try and make sure that we support them. So they will be able to join the register, and when things do go back to normal, it may be that you will have more. It just means that you have more people you can then employ in order to get things back to normal. I've just seen there's a question about the pre-reg clinical scientists. I think conversations, if you do have STP graduates, I think they will, or STP students, they will also be pulled into this temporary register. That is something that the Academy will have to discuss with HCPC. So I think it's a very fast evolving situation. So it is just about checking to see where things are going. So we'll keep updated, and we'll make sure, and if you have any questions, just contact the register. That probably would be the first thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lizanne. We're going to hand over now to Sam, and Sam is just going to explain about a recent contact that she's had this week from the UK Research and Innovation team. So Sam, over to you.
Hi, morning everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, well, I'm going to assume
Yes, we can,
you
Sam.
hear me. Good. Just the UK Research and Innovation Council have got a call for ideas for research that address COVID-19 specifically, and I just thought it was really useful to highlight it at this meeting, because they're interested in funding research of any scale that can demonstrate impact in a short scale time scale, so up to 18 months. So there's a research ethics process which is accelerated, and I was thinking that COVID is going to have a huge impact on our services and on the patients themselves. So there's possibly a lot of research ideas to do looking at the impact on our services, on the service provision, the impact on delayed identification of hearing loss, particularly in infants, possibly the sequelae of the COVID, such as hearing losses and tinnitus and vestibular dysfunction, specifically caused by viral infection and COVID. So I've spoken to Derek Hoare of the BSA and also the National Hearing Research Institute in Nottingham, and he's very interested in collating ideas as well and prioritising what heads of service think would be important to look into. But they are actually going to fund smaller projects if any of you have any particular local issues you want to do research into. So I just thought it'd be really interesting if all the different heads of service gave their ideas of priorities for research at this time. And I think that's really all I wanted to say about it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. So it's obviously something that people might not just think of straight away now. So once again, if we can ask you to go away and think about either locally, the impact for you locally or as a profession, and then get in touch with the board with any of those ideas. We've got a board meeting on the 20th of April, so we'll obviously review any feedback that we're getting from heads of services at that, just to help us decide on direction and strategy going forwards. So thank you very much. We're running slightly out of time, which is good. So I'm just going to pause there and ask everybody if they just want to take 10 minutes. We'll just go through the chat box and just sort of align that up. I think I've seen quite a few questions which we'll signpost to Jason first of all. So if we take 10 minutes and if we get back onto the call at, well, let's just make it 25 past 10, if that's okay with everybody. And then we'll pick up the questions and open up the floor for that and anything else. So thank you very much and see you at 25 past 10. Thank you. Okay, everybody, so hope you're all suitably refreshed. So just whizzing through the chat box there, just in terms of redeployment, we can see that quite a few of you have been able to support the screening programme, neonatal hearing screening programme. A few of you are being asked to go across to Nightingale hospitals. Some of you obviously looking at going up onto the wards and ITU and bed buddies, ward helpers. Some of you getting involved with contact tracing and the swabbing. And then obviously some of you being involved with more of the coordination and administration support. So really quite diverse. And I think that what would be really good is that we can share experiences, and certainly when all this is behind us, to look back and reflect on how audiologists have been able to step up and help the effort, which has been really admirable. So thank you all. We also see Darren has put up the National NHS helpline, and I can see that quite a few are suggesting that you do have local support, so that's helpful for us to know. Thank you. Lizanne and Charlotte will put up some information on registration up onto the website, and also Lizanne is happy to accept emails directly. Vic's put up into the chat box there the guidance to the document and our news page. We've got a suggestion for research about hearing loss correlation with COVID positive mums. Also, we know that Manchester ManCAD have reached out as well to help with organising any research ideas. There's one head of service there that's talked about the fact that they may have to pay people at 80%. So we'll come back to that. There's another one around school screening, and I know that I think that's probably quite varied across the country, that some services don't do that and some are in consultation about it, but we can pick that up. John has suggested using the audiology networks to put your research ideas up, so that's great, and we can certainly pull on that as a resource. So going back to Jason, I think there is some questions there, Jason, around your comments about free rein, and then also the use of ATOs as screeners, particularly if they do need to be under supervision. So I'll give the microphone back over to Jason first, please, and let Jason just talk through and respond to some of the comments that he's seen, and then we'll move to some of the other areas. Thank you.
Hello everyone, hear me again. I've had a couple come in privately as well, so I'll just go through those. So someone was asking about PVP shunts and could we screen the other ear in that case. I'll have to feed that back into the group and get back to you, just because I'm not 100% sure of the science as to why the PVP shunts came out of the screen. I know it's about the electromagnetic interference, but with the screening algorithm and with the electrode montage, I'm not sure whether that's possible or not. So I'll get back to you on that one. There's a question about the logic behind ATO screening if not under direct supervision, if they've got to do it under direct supervision. The logic behind it is basically PHE are very keen that anybody that does screening must have a level 3 diploma in screening, even if their professional qualification is above that level. They are insistent that you must have the level 3 qualification in screening. So the logic behind what they're saying with regards to supervision for those ATOs, if you're going to roll it out, is if you're quite a big site like us, and we're looking at 7 till 7 provision, at least if you've got an ATO screening, you could have one experienced screener with the ATO, so you can spread your experienced screeners out across your service, across different hours. If you're quite a small service, that probably doesn't work. So it might be more useful for the bigger services than the non-big services. With regards to audiologist screening, they will be able to do it without direct supervision, but again, they've got to go through the training program and everything like that. It's complicated, shall we say. I just cover the other one before the main point. So someone's asked, are PHE saying that the standard letter for the missed screens is mandatory and we can only amend the diagnostics letter? So the only letter that you can amend is the audiology letter. So that letter is sent out by audiology services to say, we're currently not seeing you, or we're currently not seeing them. The other letters that are on S for H are the incomplete letter, the unable to be screened letter, which is the same one, and the bilateral and unilateral referral letter if you're not seeing them. They can't be changed. So the audiology one can be changed. The other three that are on S for H shouldn't be changed. Someone said, are there any, just very quickly on this one, are there any recommendations for outpatient screening for home births? A lot depends on your trust. So if your trust is still seeing outpatient appointments, by all means, if you want to, bring them back into site to screen them. If they're not, they can be set as screening lack of capacity screening, and go into the pool of babies that are being missed because they've been discharged early. So for me, home births, discharged early, moved into the area without screening, they're here in Nottingham, they're all sat within that pool of incomplete, basically screening complete but lack of capacity. So the big one is the free rein question. I agree, it is problematic that a document does give services free rein, but what you need to be aware of is the fact that the risk level at different parts of the country is very different. And so when we're trying to do this national guidance, it would have been very easy to turn around and say, right, everybody stop diagnostic, but that wouldn't have been appropriate across the whole country. And at what point do you then look to turn that back on nationally? Because if you stop it nationally at once, you've got to turn it back on nationally together. And so we'd be off probably for longer. So the aim of the guidance, and there are, I know it's not ideal, there are words in it like, for example, if you can carry on. If your trust is not experiencing pressures, if you've got staff, run it as service as usual. Basically, the aim behind it is do as much as you physically can. And like I say, the issue with it is that every trust is going to have their own risk reward of bringing out patients in at the present time. And what's appropriate for us at the moment is no outpatients at all. What's appropriate for somebody else might be, let's see the bilaterals. What's appropriate for somebody else might be, let's see business as usual. Let's do everything together. So that's the reason why it is quite woolly, if that makes sense. So I hope that puts people's minds a little bit at rest.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. And then obviously people can still keep feeding in, because as you say, the working party is meeting on a regular basis. So we can take those questions and update. My understanding, I think, from one of our recent meetings is that once the guidance is actually published, which will be the original version of the guidance, we will then be able to update the document more easily than having to go through this kind of bureaucratic red tape process at the moment. So I guess that the document will stay fairly dynamic and change once it gets published.
I think that's the plan.
Thank you, Jason. So I don't know where people want to go to next. If you want the microphone, if you pop into the chat box that you would like to speak. There seems to be a little bit of discussion around locums and payment and so on. So I don't know, Adam Beckman, would you like to take the microphone and just talk on that? I think you've commented on there.
Sorry, Karen, I was just sending a chat and I completely blanked out. I was expecting
Sorry, I caught you off guard, sorry.
Can you just say that again?
I was just trying to sort of go up and down. There seemed to be some dialogue around the use of locums and 80% and so on. And I thought I'd seen you commenting on there. So I don't know if you wanted to just say anything.
Oh, thanks. I haven't had to deal with that actually directly, unlike some of the other people.
Okay.
They might be better placed, but my surmise was that after this is finished, if the locums find themselves having been financially in difficulty, they might start applying for substantive jobs, but I don't know. That's just an uneducated guess. So I'll shut up now.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Adam. Well, while you've got the microphone, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
I think it's really, reading through what everyone's doing and the situations are, it's really interesting being in an area that is currently got fairly low incidence, because I think there's an element of it's kind of like survivor guilt, where it's all very calm here, which feels very strange when I see colleagues who are really struggling around the country. And I just kind of want to acknowledge that the differences in what's happening around the country are putting huge variation and strain on people.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. I'll shut up again.
Thanks, Adam. Okay. So I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to ask any questions, or anybody from board that would like to comment on anything.
Hi, it's Michelle. I'd like to ask Shona. She said that they're being transferred to the Nightingale Hospital. I just wondered what sort of thing that they were starting to be trained to do. And she's replied, she said, swabbing staff in the hospital car park, 7-day service, 8 to 5 on a rota basis, full PPE given. Because certainly from the discussions we've been having, it was around the equipment side and helping alongside medical physics colleagues. So I don't know if Shona wants to share any more than that.
Can we give the microphone to Shona? We have to find long lists.
Sorry, I can't see Shona on the list now. Is she calling in?
I think she's on there, but she's actually muted herself, so I've sent a microphone request to her.
Right. No, I think we might need to move on.
I may have unfairly volunteered her just because I was interested.
Okay. Okay. If anybody else would like to take the microphone, if they just pop that into the chat box. Is there anybody else from board that would like to comment on anything? What we will do, as we did last time, is to take all of the chat comments, because obviously there's some richness in things that are being exchanged here, and again we will group that all up into themes and add that into the existing resources that we've got. So if there's nothing more now, I'm going to invite Kath just to share with us some of the work that she's been doing on health and well-being. Bear with me. So Kath, I will hand over to you, and if you would like to just take us through the next few slides and hopefully leave us feeling good.
Hello everybody. Well, I'm not sure about that. I hope so. Yeah, very strange times, aren't they, really? So from the last meeting, it was really good to hear that people are keeping in touch, and we've been able to put some advice on the website about that. And certainly please join John's network, because I think that's going to be very useful in the coming months and weeks, and ongoing from that as well. Okay. There's I've just put a few things on there that about some free messaging and conference apps as well, and we will put those on the website. Okay. Obviously keeping in touch is very important for us, and also keeping connected when we are moving around. So some services, obviously, that's going on, they're going to be split up a little bit for a little while. So I think keeping in touch is really important. So what I looked at as well was around the health and well-being, because certainly in my service, I have people that are really stressed about what's going on. And it's quite challenging for us as heads of service to try and manage that and keep a sense of calm in this strange time. So I've looked at a couple of the online tools that are around, and I'll just say that I've had some more come through, so I will get those put on the website. I'll ask Victoria to put those on too. So we look to the next screen. So I looked at NHS in Mind and also Headspace. Okay, so NHS, so these are two slightly different things. I wanted to see how workable they were for our teams. Headspace is an app that you have to download. NHS in Mind you can directly get on the internet, and that has been put together by two cognitive behavioural hypnotherapists and the mindfulness teacher, and the therapists work in the NHS. So I looked at this to see if we could do this throughout the day. There's 8 easy access short interventions, and these vary, and I've done them all from 1 minute to 21 minutes. And the idea is to help to alleviate and combat some anxiety and fatigue. And I think fatigue is really important because, you know, the stress adds fatigue. And I think if we are going to be sent out to different areas, we're going to be working in different ways and probably more tired about that. So the box breathing takes 5 minutes to do, and remember that, you know, self-help and relaxation is not for everybody. So some people will need other tools apart from these, but just to look at these tools. So box breathing is 5 minutes. It's a very simple one to do. It does focus your mind a little bit. It's a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of breathing, and it's something perhaps our staff could do just before they start doing anything in the morning or whenever they're at work. The Notice 5 Things is a mindfulness session that just takes a minute, and that's just focusing on what's around you. So that's a mindfulness thing. Then there's another breathing one, 3-minute breathing space. That's also a good one to help us to breathe, to help with the anxiety. As is the short meditation on the breath, which is a little bit longer. So you can see that there's different levels of these, and they could be done in the break times. You know, I've looked at how easy this is. The muscle relaxations are a fairly typical one that we might use in tinnitus. So, you know, those who do tinnitus management will be very familiar with a lot of these. The ego strengthening hypnosis is quite interesting. So that is a deep relaxation. So something to do probably at the end of the day when you've finished. And then there are another couple of breathing exercises to finish with. So you can have a look at that. So NHS in Mind, you can just do that from work. That's fairly straightforward to do. I looked at Headspace then, and Headspace is a downloadable app, and they are offering a month's free trial. Now, Headspace has an awful lot of content in it. There are lots of different types of anxiety control measures depending on what you need. So there's things in there for, you know, if you're very addicted to your phone, for instance. So I've signed up to do there's a weekly relaxation tool on that. And I looked at, and this is the free one that I've looked at. So there's 9 videos that range from 4 to 20 minutes, 6 3-minute meditations, so they're quite short, and 8 single meditations ranging from 3 to 10 minutes. And then there's some animations, so little short animations that it's almost like putting things into perspective, really. So that's free for a month, but then you have to pay for it. Now, as I say, I've been sent some more. One was called Silver Cloud Health, so we'll put that on the website, and I'll try that one as well. So I think for me, I would start with NHS in Mind. It's free, it's easily accessible, and it's quite good, actually. If you need something longer term, then perhaps try some downloadable apps, and there are quite a number of those. But also, don't forget the tinnitus apps. They've got some good tools on there as well, and they're free.
Real-time stock check on your FFP3s. Well, not just yours, everybody's.
Yeah.
Just figure out what it is you have.
Yeah. Well, I'd ordered on Tuesday night to go, and they weren't delivered yesterday. I think we have a total of 8.
Okay, I think we've got some interference on this. Barbara, it sounds like Barbara, you're in a conversation.
They are.
So, Cass, sorry, had you finished saying what you needed to say?
Yeah, yes, I had. Yes, that's fine. Like I said, you tasked me to have a look at these, and I will have a look at some of the others as well. But don't forget that exercise is good for some people. Some people need something just to focus the mind on, not necessarily relaxation techniques. So yeah, give it a go. It's very important, I think, that we try and keep our teams' health and well-being at the forefront of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kath. And I can see that Leslie's populated quite a lot in the chat box as well. So as I say, we will take all of the comments and the resources and links that you've shared with us and pop all that onto the head of service part on the website. And we'll continually to populate that and share information with you. So if you are all wanting to, obviously, you know, from day to day, we don't really know what is happening next. But if we want to just adopt this pattern of just coming online every couple of weeks and just sharing if there's anything to share, and as time moves on, we'll just take a view on that. But I would propose that we will schedule and invite you to another session on the 23rd of April, 2 weeks today. As we can see, we've got through our material quicker this time than we did the last time, because there's kind of less things to talk about and we're getting more clarity. But I think it's a useful place to just to keep sharing and keep connected with each other. So if you all want that, we will send out that link and we'll put together any activity that's happened between now and then. So that just leaves me to wish you all, if you can, a happy Easter weekend, and hope that some of you are able to get a little bit of downtime. Stay safe and well, we hope, and all the very best from board, and we will speak to you again very soon. If I can just ask all of the board directors that are on the call just to stay online, and we'll just chat about next steps and who's taking ownership of what, that'd be really helpful. But for the rest of you, thank you very much again for your attention, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you all. Bye.